The OG is back. My first friend that came into the studio ever was you, bro, last year.
Yeah. 2 years in a row now, we did the March pay-per-view.
March pay-per-view.
That's been cool.
I've been to 3 straight March pay-per-views because reminded me about that yesterday. Yesterday we were watching, and Boss in the building. For those that are new to the program, Boss used to be one of the founding members of Veterans Minimum. We did this show together for many, many years, and is one of my really good friends. And even though you don't believe that, I know sometimes you're like, yo, no shot. But yeah, we've made this March tradition go down, bro. It's been every year now. I know it's only back-to-back years, but it's been good. How you like Vegas now, bro?
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. Last card from last year was kind of lackluster in terms of like booking and star power, but this card was like can't miss. It was John Jones, Valentino was on there. She wound up losing, but the names on that card, I was so happy that it wound up being the March card this year. I was like, yo, if we're gonna like go to these cards every year, I've needed a little something better than last year. And last year the experience was dope because it was my first Vegas fight card, so that was insane. But this year was like on another level.
And again, we hit our parlay. We'll get to that in a little bit. We do got a big weekend to recap and the fight game and a bunch of other things going on. But also we have a special guest, a very special guest. This is the first time ever I have I hate saying the word fan, especially for him because like we've kind of become friends too. I actually met him the first time I came to a Vegas pay-per-view was for Adesanya Romero. I came out here with Alex Perez. Shouts to Alex. To do some stuff with VM and editing and a bunch of graphics and whatnot. One of my good friends that I met through creating content. And then out here, I also met Nick Chavez, who a lot of you listening have heard this kid's fucking name be mentioned all the time because he's a Patreon member. He's pledged the most money to the Patreon all time. I've sent him a bunch of merch. The hat that he's wearing now, if we could get the hat on Nick, I don't even have that hat, so that's how exclusive it is. It was like, yo, this is a one of one, dude. It's yours. So I sent it to him. So Nick Chavez, 3 Nicks. Again, bro, like we just can't escape it. Nick Chavez in the building, bro. I want to say thank you, first and foremost, for all the contributions to the Patreon. And what do you think of the studio? What do you think of everything, bro?
Lamb, first off, it's an honor and privilege to be here with you. I really appreciate you.
Slow down, dude. When you hear shit like that, you're like, yo, honor.
No, I'm serious, man. This is the big time. This is a great studio. Like, this is for real. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm glad you included me. I'm glad to have met Boss over the weekend, chop it up with him. I just think that this is incredible, man. I'm happy to be here. And it was a banger card.
Hell yeah.
And then when we went to 248, that was also really cool to connect with you back then. And then, maintain it through the pandemic and this friendship that we kind of built over the years. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, and you do jiu-jitsu also, right?
Yes, sir. I'm a competitor.
Oh.
So
You actually compete or you just okay.
I do compete on the regional scene as well as later this year, maybe early next year, just depending on where. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with Fight to Win, those submission grappling events. I'm going to try and get myself into that later this year, early next year if it comes into I'm from the Albuquerque area, so I got a little bit of a special connection to the mixed martial arts world. We'll get into that a little bit later.
I mean, bro, we get into that right now. This kid he was on John Jones's Instagram story. He was like, yeah, yo, like tell the background to that.
Okay, so the background to that is my dad and my uncle, they're partners in a restaurant in Albuquerque, and it's called Vintage 423, and we have another partner too. But the point is that it's a restaurant bar that John Jones likes to go to because it's kind of in the area of where he lives. So he recognizes my father and his partner, and we all just connected at the Cosmopolitan, leaving breakfast while he was going to eat breakfast after he weighed in. So it was pretty dope. He got to wrestle my little cousin, who's I think he's an all-district wrestler for his high school. And you get to see him. He's like 125 pounds, wrestling John Jones, who's 250, quite literally twice this kid's size. It was pretty dope.
Damn, bro, that's so far. He was showing us the pictures on the Instagram, and he told us a story right before that. And you've always been a big John Jones guy.
Yeah.
Bro, New York, one of New York's finest.
Upstate New York.
Yeah.
And both his brothers went to Syracuse, so that's a cool little connection too. But when I met Nick too, it was dope meeting Nick. You set that up. So we went to they had a fight show over at the MGM Grand before the weigh-ins. So we talked for like 3 hours, just BS in fights. And you were saying too how you cornered Dan Argueta in LFA, which I thought was cool too. Like being the cornerman for a big time fight, for a regional fight.
I was a glorified water boy, but yeah.
I'm still in the corner. That's still badass, bro. And now Argueta's in the UFC now.
Yeah.
And was on the Ultimate Fighter, so like he's a big name too.
Yeah, you had told me about that. You were like, "Yo, my buddy's gonna be on Ultimate Fighter," and that was dope. I started following. I start to build like rooting interest for people that fight. Once like you know them, it's mad obvious, right? Like once you know someone, or if someone you know knows them, it's like, yo, I kind of become a fan of that person, and it was dope to see. I do want to mention that this is like maybe the first non-alcoholic thing that I'm gonna drink this entire week, bro. It was bad. I drank a lot of beer this weekend, bro. Like it was, I was planning it too because this kid loves to throw him back. I love to throw him back. I don't drink as much as I used to, also because like the jujitsu and the working out. But man, I knew for a fact, I'm like, bro, we're going to these regional fights on Friday. Shouts to my buddy Dimitri. You were watching the fights at Tough Enough over at Sahara. That was a pretty fun time, man. Just seeing people fight and throw down, it's dope. And you never know who's going to blossom from there, right? Like, you never know who's going to end up going to Bellator or the UFC. So it's always dope to say, because we loved back home going to like CFFC and going to, you know, we've been to Bellator and obviously UFC, but to see those guys coming up, it was super dope. And then I quickly remembered why I don't like buying beer when I go to places sometimes. It was, what, $15 a beer? I was like, oh, my God, it's a can, bro. Like, what are we doing? This shit is just – so I drank a shitload of beer Friday night. I go to the gym in the morning on Saturday, sweat it all out. And in, like, middle of my workout, I'm like, why am I even doing this, bro? I know I'm just going to go and throw back another 10 beers in like 25 minutes, and that's what ended up happening. That's the most I've drank in a long time, bro.
Yeah. That's what I was going to hang out with me, I guess. I started drinking. I can't stop. I had texted you, actually. I was like, going to get another round. You're like, yo, I'm good. And I wound up bringing you back another round. You're like, yo, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, you show up to the seat with another beer. I'm not going to say no to it. I was like, all right, I guess I have another beer now. We got to have another beer. But what'd you think, Nick, about the crowd yesterday? Thought the crowd was into it? Did you think it was a good vibe in the arena?
Okay, Nick, you're going to especially appreciate this because you also train jiu-jitsu. Whenever the crowd starts brewing a grappling match, I take that as a personal attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, stand them up. You know, guys yelling that stuff and they're just booing when if you're not in that situation where you're under somebody, you don't understand how exhausting it is. And those little details that you're doing to get yourself out of a bad position, like that's a real fight in and of itself, but it's just something that you can't see from the outside and you don't understand it until you're actually on the wrong side of it. But overall, the crowd had an amazing energy. It was a big John Jones crowd, which I was shocked to see. Like just because of his controversial history, I'd say like the most politically correct way to phrase it, that it would just be they'd be showing him that much love, and I really appreciated seeing that because, you know, being from Albuquerque, having interacted with him a few times in the past, he's a really cool dude, and I'm glad he got that love.
It's funny because at the press conference, I think John Morgan was like, yo, this is the loudest I've ever heard it for John Jones, like, in his favor. So you're right. Like, that was definitely noticeable throughout, like, the whole week. And even when we were at the MGM, I was like, yo, that energy is so much different this year. Because last year, there was no title fights on that March card.
It wasn't, no.
This year, there was 2. So it felt like there was 2 title fights on this card. Like, that's how much energy there was in the arena. And when I had met up with Nick, he was like, it was early. I think it was around 1 o'clock, and the weigh-ins, the doors for the weigh-ins, ceremonial weigh-ins, weren't opening till I think 3. And he said there had already been a line like around the corner and down the hall. I'm like, yo, that's insane. Last year we walked right in.
Yeah.
And we went, I think, like 10, 15 minutes before it started. So the energy this week was like night and day compared to last year. And it's John Jones, so I didn't expect anything less.
Yeah, but actually 3 title fights if you count Jake Gyllenhaal's.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that was hysterical. It was so random because, I looked into this. You know, Metallica doesn't let fighters walk out to their music.
No, I didn't know that.
I think Brock Lesnar walked out. That was the last time that, like, Enter Sandman, when he fought Mark Hunt, he came out to Enter Sandman. But apparently there's this thing where, like, they don't, like, they're whatever the rights are for you to play someone's music, like, the fee is insane, right? I mean, it's Metallica. It's one of the best bands of all time. But, yeah. So when I heard Enter Sandman, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then I'm walking back. Obviously, I went to go get beers. As I'm walking back, I see UFC 222. I'm like, what the hell? And then I see Jake Gyllenhaal. Dude is shredded, bro. Holy hell. That is some physique. What's up?
A lot of chicken and rice, man.
Yo, a lot of other things. Like Dana White made a joke. He's like, I don't know if he would pass USADA testing, but he definitely looked great. Yo, you brought up a good ass point, dude. And recently, this video has been going somewhat viral, and maybe it could be for me because of what my feed is and the algorithm of Joe Rogan talking about if you're an average Joe and you're just a regular civilian and a jiu-jitsu black belt gets his hands on you, you're helpless, right? Like there's nothing you could do. It's only a matter of time. I was watching that clip and I was like, bro, I think I'm a pretty good blue belt for someone that trains 2, maybe 3 times a week. Bro, there's times when a black belt gets his hands on me and I feel helpless. And it's like, bro, I actually know what to do. I know how to get out of these things. And I feel helpless. And to bring it back to what you said about how difficult it is being underneath someone and the crowd booing. I've never been someone that booed, like ever, even before I started training. But then training kind of validated, like, all right, there's no way you can ever boo.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And also, like Nick, to your point, for your audio only listeners, I'm 155 pounds. I'm a small dude, soaking wet. So when I'm underneath a guy who's 220, John Jones size, like I am absolutely helpless. And that's what's crazy because even guys like when I first started, I was a little heavier. But when I first started, like there were guys even smaller, like 5'6", $135, that would just put me under insane shoulder pressure. It's just something that you can't really describe without having experienced it firsthand.
Got to get you on the mats, bro, so you could have an understanding of what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, from a fan perspective, I know what you're talking about. But
nah, you're also not someone that boos though. But there are people that they'll be booing. You know?
I remember there was like a couple points during last night too. He was like, "Yo, I'm so upset they're booing right now." He's like, "Why are they booing?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I can never do this."
And then, dude, also like we were financially invested in Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah.
And there'd be times where, you know, he strikes me as someone that's probably had a lot of wars in the gym.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Doesn't it seem like it? Because, dude, he looked very fluid. It was the flow state we kept saying. And we're like, yo, bro, he looks like he might be back. He's doing his little Ali shuffle, and he's having fun in there. And the crowd would start booing, and you'd see him kind of put himself in danger. And, like, bro, he got popped at one point, kind of, like, backed into the cage. And it didn't even seem like such a big power shot. And there are all these reports, and everyone in MMA media and fans say that he has no chin, and he's very chinny, and, you know, one shot is all it takes, especially for a guy like him. And it's crazy, like, his run was so wild because he was undefeated, right?
Yeah, undefeated and unranked the year he won it all. He wound up winning in December.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he just, like, it brutal knockout after brutal knockout he's suffering. And then the crowd is booing, right? The crowd is booing him going in there. And you're saying to yourself, like, yo, don't boo, because then he might see that as, like, yo, I got to do something fun and creative. And then you get caught, bro.
Can we talk about this fight for a little bit? Because this is a fight I wanted to bring up because it was coming off the heels of that absolute banger of a Brunson Duplessis fight. Nick, or boss, we talked about this yesterday. Well, about the, what was it, Zhang Wei Li, Yoyana Yurchek from 248.
Yeah.
That was an absolute banger fight. And then it was kind of followed up by a little bit of a slower paced fight with Adesanya Romero. We had a similar situation happen yesterday with that Derek Brunson and Duplessis fight where Derek Brunson put on an absolute clinic of grappling in the first round, and then Duplessis put on a boxing clinic in the second round. It was absolutely perfect UFC fight. If you want to introduce somebody to the UFC, you show them that Brunson-Duplessis fight because it's how a mix of styles, and you can see anything can happen in mixed martial arts. But going back to Garbrandt versus Jones, that first round was a little bit slow-paced, you know, not very light as far as strike volume goes. But then in that second round, Cody had 2 banger takedowns.
Oh, yeah.
Vicious slams.
Yeah.
And, you know, however you decided to score that card, going into the third round, he had 2 rounds in his pocket. So as a fighter, you don't want to put yourself in needless danger by going after a knockout or trying to go for a submission attempt and leaving yourself vulnerable. So I think that Garbrandt fought a very smart fight, especially where he is, as far as where he is at in his career. And I don't think the crowd should have booed that fight. I think because Cody is such a fan favorite, he deserves to get a win, and he won in my book.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with Nick too. Like that's what I was telling you, where we're so used to Cody Garbrandt like deviating from the game plan and then just brawling, and he's been in those brawls. Like when he fought Munhoz after the title fights with Dillashaw, like those were wars too in a sense. Like he hurt Dillashaw. Remember in the first fight at the end of the first round,
Bro,
could have ended the fight if it wasn't saved by the bell.
Dude. Couple more seconds, which is crazy because you have it so many times. You'll have fights that, like Adesanya Pereira.
Yeah,
Couple more seconds in that first round, was it?
yeah,
Probably gets a finish.
yeah. So,
Cody and TJ. Like, what would the trajectory of Cody be if there were like 5 more seconds in that first fight?
right.
Where he drops him and then Dillashaw is out. It's just crazy. That's why fighting is so wild, bro.
So I think that's where the booing comes from. Where it's like everyone who's tuned into a Cody Garbrandt fight, like post his title run, has all seen brawls and him on the losing end of it for the most part, except for the Asuncao fight. So it's like the game plan he bought yesterday, which is like you see what happens when he sticks to the game plan. Like he's tough to hit and tough to get out of there, and he was fighting confident. It was like you said, doing his shuffle, doing his thing. So he was zoned in yesterday. The only thing I was disappointed about, I just hold him to such a high standard because it's Cody Garbrandt, former champion. It's like, oh man, this dude. I agree with everything you said, where in the sense that he's up to nothing, so there's no need to put himself in needless danger. But I was like, oh man, it's like tough to see him dropping around to Trevin Jones, just because like I'm like, oh, Cody Garbrandt. I still think of him as like a upper echelon fighter in the bantamweight division.
You hold him to a championship standard,
Right.
Like that's what you have to do to champions and former champions. You got to hold them up to a higher standard because they've proven to the public and to their peers that they are at an elevated level or can achieve that elevated level.
Yeah. So I was telling Nick right after the fight, I was like, damn. I was like, he definitely won the fight. I was just like, oh, I'm just a little upset that the way the third round played out, where he didn't do much and he lost the round. I was like, oh, I don't want to see that guy dropping a round to Trevin Jones. But fair game to him. I mean, he won the fight and he needed a W to just probably for his mental and also his career, just to get like things back on track. Everything's better after a W. Everyone knows that.
I mean, bro, without question. And like, I feel like he kind of got. It was a way easier fight than the one he was originally booked for. Arce is a badass, also from back home in New York. That would have been a way more difficult fight for him, and I feel like the UFC kind of like threw him like a layup. Like you should get a win, like on the prelim, and then it goes into the main card too, which was so interesting with Bo Nickel. And bro, I've never seen. We've been betting for. I mean, we bet on every card. We've been betting for ages. I don't remember seeing minus 900 by finish. Like usually you'll have a big favorite, right? Like he was minus 2,000 in many places, meaning $2,000 to win 100. The implied is like 98% or some shit. It's something ridiculous of him winning. It might be even higher, but usually you'll find value. Like I bet him to win by knockout because it was plus 200. I was like, I'm not gonna bet him by submission minus 200. Ends up winning by submission. But I was saying to myself, like, there's no way I could lay minus 800 on a finish for anyone because shit happens. But it was also like minus 200 for the fight to end in round 1 for Bo Nickel, which was insane. What do you think of Bo Nickel? You think it's everything that they're hyping him up to?
Yeah, easily. And I said to you, I just said to Nick too when we were walking in here, I said, I was kind of surprised Pickett showed good defense. Like I was like, oh shit, maybe we'll see Bo Nickel face some adversity. But then again, it was only a matter of time where that dude last night, it looked like he could have done anything he wanted at any given time. And he kind of showed that, and then getting the subs at the finish.
Bro, when you're a specialist, and you know this from training, it's really only a matter of time. When you're going up against a wrestler like that and the advantage is so significant, it's like, yeah, you might stuff that initial takedown, but they're relentless. They're chaining wrestling moves. It's like single to double to, double crotch, like all this shit that they're doing. And it's the same thing with like a black belt, dude. Like I roll with some guys over at Syndicate, dude, that are like high-level black belts, and obviously Jerry and Shane are the coaches over there. Shout out to the Shapiro brothers. But it's only a matter of time before they strangle you. Like this one dude, Ryan, I was telling this story. I didn't know that he was a black belt. And I don't train in the gi much. I know you get at me too as you're giving me the thumbs down. He gets at me too. I don't like the gi. I've maybe trained from the time I got my black belt in December of not this past
Black belt?
December. Blue belt, excuse me. When I got my blue belt, it was like December of 2022. No, December of 2021. I've maybe trained like 7 times in the gi since then. I just don't like the gi. I don't like that you could just like hold me down there and you're holding onto my collar and I can't. And obviously you're like, yo, that's why you got to go to gi class if you know how to get out of that. But like, dude, one of the times where I was at Syndicate, I'm training and I'm in the gi. And, eventually, like, you're not wearing your belt anymore because you're tired of putting it back on. Like, you're just rolling. I'm rolling with this kid. And, bro, he was just doing whatever he wanted to me. And then I see over to the side, there's like a white belt, my blue belt, and a black belt. And I'm like, bro, if he's a white belt, I'm never training again. I was like, if that, and he walks over, he grabs a black belt. I'm like, oh, thank God I can keep training. But, like, dude, I bring it back to, like, the Bo Nickel thing, right? And Jamie Pickett defense the takedown. It's the same thing, bro. It's only a matter of time before, like, it was like Habib and Conor, remember?
Yeah.
Like, Conor was stuffing some of those early takedowns. It's like, all right, you could do that 1 or 2 times. But eventually it's just when you're that alpha at that specific thing, it's like, bro, when you train with a black belt, it's only a matter of time. And oftentimes they'll let you, like, they'll put you in a hold and just to see how you would react to it. And then it's like chaining one, triangles, fucking Kimuras into leg lock. You're like, oh, fuck, but there's no, it's a relentless pace in all aspects of MMA.
So, Bo Nickel, I just need to bring it up because for your video listeners, I've got this New Mexico crew neck on. Bo Nickel has got his roots in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. That's a town right next to Albuquerque. I think he spent a year or two at Rio Rancho High School or Sioux Cleveland, one of the two. It doesn't. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's got his connections to New Mexico, so I thought I'd shout that out real fast. But he's just an absolute unstoppable force. 3-time NCAA champion. He's going to be a contender, I think. And it's 185 too, so this man is massive.
Yeah,
massive dude. And I'm really interested to see what the landscape is when he finally breaks into contention.
but I do think they should do the O'Malley route with him.
I don't think they will, bro. I think he's on the fast track for sure. Like,
boss.
everyone sings his praises. Like, his credentials are unmatched. His wrestling credentials, like, everyone knows who Bo Nickel is. Not only in the wrestling community, but now, if you didn't know him before last night, now you know who he is because that's how dominant he was. You said, like, if you're just looking at lines, like, who the hell is this guy minus 2,000 in a fight? Like, anything can happen in a fight, but it's like kind of looked all of the minus 2,000 he was set up to be yesterday. So, nah, I don't think he's on the O'Malley route. I think he's going to be big time fast tracked. And if you see the 2 guys that are booked for the title fight, Adesanya and Pereira, they're great strikers. So it would be interesting to see how they match up or how he would match up with them. I mean, I know you got to get in to get a takedown, but if he takes them to the ground, that's super deep waters for either of them, for anybody really, but especially for the champions.
But you don't think they'll give him a couple more kind of showcase fights?
Without a doubt. They'll probably give him one more unranked fight, and then he'll get like somewhere between 8 and 15, like the back half of the ranking. Then he might have one of like against a top contender.
Like a Brunson.
Yeah.
We were talking about Brunson. I was like, forever, in my head, I think of Brunson as forever number 6. I just always think of him as number 6 in the rankings. All the guys that have gone on to win a title at 185 have fought him at some point. Izzy fought him. Whitaker fought him. It's like that's, the gatekeeper, as they call him. And, yeah, I think you're right. I think they give him another guy who'll just, like, run through kind of just outside the rankings. And then you'll give him maybe a bigger name at 185 who was maybe not a champion, but
Maybe
like
actually Brunson.
But yeah.
Coming off
like,
loss in the top 15.
Yeah, like a Brad Tavares, like one of those kind of guys. And then you work your way into the top 5 of the division. But like calling out Chimaev and like wanting the Chimaev fight, I don't think the UFC would do that either way. Not yet, because you got these 2 hype trains. You got these 2 dudes that, like, why not? Oh, brings up a good question. Are you someone that thinks, like, yo, just make the fight happen?
I think the fight needs to make sense from a business perspective in order to happen. It's all timing. Timing is, like, right now, a fight that makes sense, because you brought up Chimaev, I think a fight that makes sense given just, like, public perception, where the money could be, fandoms, would be Costa versus Chimaev.
I like that.
that's a fight that, in my opinion, would make sense at this time. I don't think somebody like Nickel and Chimaev would make sense at this time, just because Bo Nickel's star needs to rise a little bit in the eyes of the public, so that way they can book that, because it could be like UFC Fight Night main event type of attraction. So I just think like timing and business wise, there still needs to be things like you can't just make a fight happen just to make it happen, because ultimately that's kind of bad business and it skews the perception of other fighters moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny too that the media day Nickel was saying that he wants the Chimaev fight at Allegiant Stadium, which hasn't been done yet. I don't know if that would be like right now. If that was to be next, like you said, like timing wise, I don't think that would draw well for a football stadium for a UFC's first fight. You know, that at some point, like I think that should be safe for the top for like a title fight if they both wind up making it there. Like until then, I kind of want like that fight on ice right now.
I hear both of your cases, and I think that's the right case. However, it is fighting, and if it's hot right now, why not do it? I don't want this fight to happen, but I'm playing devil's advocate. Like, yeah, you want to build it to a point where, like, Izzy and Costa was the best case scenario of something like this, because there were two guys, they kind of came into the UFC around the same time. They were both undefeated. They both were talking shit to one another. And it was like, all right, if these guys keep winning, when they clash, it'll be dope, because you have the storyline, you have the history, you have the aura of both guys. And then you had that. But there's been so many cases where it's like, this guy versus this guy down the road, and then fighter A loses and then goes on a losing streak. And then it's like, dude, you know what would have been sick if we would have saw that fight a year ago. So there is that also.
Hindsight, like Cam Newton's famously said, hindsight's 50-50, man. Like, yeah, that fight would have been a banger, but also it could have been a dud. I mean, who's really to know?
Yeah, and I mean, like we saw with Adesanya with Romero. Like everyone was like, "Yo, that's gonna be a dope fight," and then it was kind of a dud. And then with Cannonier too, like that was like the power puncher against the skilled striker and Izzy, and then that's kind of a dud. The Derek Lewis versus Francis, like, that's one of the worst fights ever, bro.
Yeah, I was so hyped for that fight, and it was Francis coming off the eldest Stipe in that January, and I think he fought Derek Lewis International Fight Week in July, and he was so tentative, and like, yeah, it could wind up being a dud, man. You never know. I would hold off on that fight, bro. We both know that. I mean, at least Bo Nickel, like, I don't think he's losing his next fight. Chimaev, who knows where they put him? He might get a top 5 guy at 85. He's also fighting. I mean, he's fought 85 before, but now it looks like he's there for good. So it'll be interesting to see how he, sizes up with other 85ers that are at the top of the rankings. And then I think we could just wait on that fight, man. I want to see it like with stakes. I mean, it already has stakes because they're probably two of the most popular middleweights on the roster, or up there behind Adesanya and Pereira. So let their star build, like Nick said, and then just give me stakes. Give me a number 1 contender fight. Give me a title eliminator, or give me, both of them meeting up at the top for a title.
You want a hot take?
Yeah.
I'm not a Chimaev guy. I don't think he's gonna be the champion at 185. I don't see it.
Well, bro, I mean, he got to fight Whitaker.
Yeah.
That's the one that they're. I know you said Costa, but I think the more realistic fight is Whitaker, and Whitaker's a tough fight, bro. Like Whitaker is like Covington to me in a way, where they probably beat.
And Max too.
And Max, yeah, Max is a good one. They probably beat everyone in the top 5 in their division except for the guy that was champion. Like Covington will probably never be able to beat Usman, right? 0-2, maybe won 2 rounds. Yeah. In the 10, and then Whitaker just couldn't. He won't be able to beat Izzy. It's just a matchup. And then, like you mentioned, Max just can't beat Volk, but he beats everyone else. He has a dope fight coming up against Arnold Allen next month. That's gonna be fun to see. But then what do you do, right? Like if Max wins that, he just eliminated a guy who we would maybe want to see against Volk. It's fascinating stuff, man. That's why that matchmaking is so interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think Max too. Just speaking on Max quick, I think 55 is just inevitable for him at this point, just because of the history with Volk. Like there's Owen, was it 0-3?
0-3, yeah.
So it's like we don't need to see that ran back again for a 4th time, and he could fight at 55, man. He has the range. He fought Poirier already for the interim title years ago in Atlanta, So I think that's inevitable for Max.
Our boy yesterday got another finish. Shavkat.
Oh yeah,
You put me on to Shavkat, and then I kind of been running with it too. You're like, yo, future champ. Future
Yeah.
champ at 170.
Quick.
Had a hell of a fight, man. They got performance of the night, fight of the night, excuse me. And Dana White even came out and said, he's like, yo, I don't give a shit. I'm giving him a bonus because he's been very adamant that if you don't make weight, you ain't getting a bonus.
So Jeff Neal missed weight.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm
right.
talking about Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal missed weight, and then Dana White said, fight of the night, you have to give it to those two guys. He tested Rachmanov, which was dope. Do you like Rachmanov? I know you don't like Chimaev, but
I do like Rachmanov. I actually have it right here in my notes because I was being a nerd last night and taking notes after each fight. The only line that says "Lamb, go off."
Yeah,
That's the only thing I have written down here.
yeah, bro. He's massive. Number one, like at the weigh-ins, I couldn't believe the size difference between him and Jeff Neal. And Jeff Neal's a really good fighter. Like he's a guy who, it was a good test for Rachmanov. It was his biggest test. There were some times during the fight I'm turning to boss because we had him in our parlay. I was like, bro, he don't look like a minus 500 favorite. But then he faced adversity, which is what you want to see in a guy like that has all this hype, and he maintains his 100% finish rate in his career.
So similar to Chimaev, like when he fought Burns, I was like Shavkat, like this is a great fight for him. Jeff Neal,
Good
where it's
comp.
like we're gonna see what he's made of because Neal had those health issues a little while ago, and I think he lost his first fight back, and then he beat Vicente Luque, who weighed in for a backup to the Covington
Yeah.
Usman fight. So Vicente Luque was also like at one point right there for a title shot. People forget that, and then Jeff Neal put him away. And like that's
Finished him for the first time in his career.
that's a statement. So
Hell
then
yeah.
this fight, like he had his moments too in this fight where he had Shavkat backing up, hit him with some. I mean, his fight name is Hands of Steel, so he was coming with tough shots for Shavkat. And then, but yeah, man, that was a war back and forth, and I was happy to see someone like Shavkat, who's now 17-0, 17 finishes, so balanced, 9 subs, 8 knockouts, like. We haven't seen something like this, I feel like, with 100% finish rate for a top guy in some time. So it'll be interesting to see what's next for him. Off the top of my head, I'm not really sure where I'd matchmake him, but he's like on the cusp of a title shot, maybe one more fight.
I didn't catch this when we were there, but he called out Covington.
I didn't catch that either. I heard Dana White say that in the press
Yeah.
conference, that he said that in the octagon. I didn't catch that either, but dang. I like Covington, so I don't know if I want to see that fight.
Yo, it's crazy, bro. You're so right. Like usually you'll see a dude, he'll be, just say hypothetically speaking, say he's 21-0, right? He'll probably have 16 by knockout, 5 by submission. Or it's the other way around. You're this all-world jiu-jitsu guy, and you have 16 subs, 5 knockouts. This guy has, it's like 9-8.
Now it is, yeah. It was 8-8 going
It was
into last
8-8
night.
going into that. That's crazy how balanced he is, bro.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to bring up was Jeff Neal's takedown defense in this fight because you could tell that when Neal was putting these hands on Rachmanov wanted to take the fight where he wanted it,
Right.
onto the mat, and he was just stuffing these takedowns and gassing out Rachmanov. So that's where the adversity came from, and Rachmanov proved to me at least that he could hang in on the feet, even though he had ostensibly a grappling advantage. But it was a dope fight. It was an absolute banger leading into the Shevchenko-Grasso fight.
Yeah, dude. And that was leg 1 of the subathon. We were close, bro. I'm going to hit one of these
Yeah.
subathons. So close.
I hit that one.
I had the last 3 fights. I had the favorite winning by submission, and we went 2 for 3. And then, of course, Grasso ends up winning by submission. And I was like, damn, if that was the other way around.
wrong
Can we talk
side.
about your tweet
Yeah, which one?
about Grasso's submission?
Oh, yeah, dude. She's a great girl. Right? Yeah, we live in this climate where you can't say much else. That's why we just say great girl. And if you know, you know. If you don't, you'll figure it out.
And now she's the champion.
And now she's a champ. And yo, I've been a fan of hers because I love watching her box. Very good boxing. Her stand-up is legit. And I was worried when it would go to the ground because I felt like there was a point in that fight where we turned to each other and we said, oh, it's crucifix time. Because Valentina almost had her in that.
She did have her in it.
She did,
for
yeah.
briefly.
And Dude, you've been on this a little bit about how you think Valentina is kind of she don't look as unstoppable as she once did
Yeah.
for the last couple of fights, too.
I mean, last fight I scored for Taila Santos. I didn't think it was a robbery. Like I was cool with Valentina
Yeah.
winning, obviously, but she clearly dropped 2 rounds on the scorecards in everyone's eyes. And then the fight before that, I don't know, or maybe it was a couple fights before that because I think she fought Lauren Murphy in between. But she fought Jennifer Maia. She got put on bottom and lost the round to Jennifer Maia. So she's looked human. That's all I said. I was like, yo, she's looked super beatable her last couple fights. And then our buddy was texting us through the fights, and he's like, yo, Valentina's, because I couldn't really see from the seats, like looking down in the cage, but he was saying Val's not moving her head, and like she's there to be hit. And I was like, damn, like she didn't look like all that good on the feet. And like when it got to the ground, she was looking good. And then she made like an error with throwing that spinning kick to the body. Got her back taken, and it was over shortly thereafter. But like you said too, I love for a while now watching Grasso and Aldana fight, and they both come from the same gym.
Yeah.
Their boxing is so crisp, so it's fun to see them like get out there and like just flow on the feet.
Is Aldana, real quick, is she fighting Nunez for the belt?
That's like in talks. They
In
asked
talks?
Dana that last night. He said nothing official yet, but they're trying to get Aldana a fight.
Bro, we got 3 Mexican champions now. Yair, Moreno, and now her, Grasso. And then if Aldana could get one, you know,
That'd be nuts.
Like, yo, it would be a good time to maybe do a huge UFC card in Mexico, right?
I think Mexico City. Well, it's kind of hard because Mexico City is at extreme elevation.
Word.
That's at 6,300 feet. And even though Mexico City, one of the biggest places in the world, and I don't know if you've ever been, but that place is just, it's bigger than New York. It's
That's where Azteca is, right?
Yes,
the
it is.
soccer, bro. That's like a bucket list of mine, dude. I really want to go watch a game there, or in South America in general, even Europe. I haven't watched a soccer game in Europe,
Mexico
but
is North America.
no.
But yeah.
But I'm saying I know, but I'm saying like in South America too. Like I want to go to
Oh, yeah,
Colombia.
yeah.
I know
Latin
you're going to
America.
Argentina in a couple of months. Like it's gonna be summer for them there. But the first thing I told him, bro, I was like, bro, you got to go to like a Boca Juniors game or River Plate. Like you have to go and just see what that culture is gonna be like, bro.
Yeah. Oh, so it'll be kind of weird to make it happen in Mexico City, but if anybody could figure out, Uncle Dana could figure it out.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's also like a perfect storm right now because you have like Yair Volk would be a main event, and then you have these belts underneath it.
Yep.
Maybe you do 3 titles in Mexico City. Like that place is gonna be jumping, bro.
No, it's crazy too. I feel like it wouldn't be that crazy to do Yair Volk there because Volk just got his fight at home too
Yeah.
against Islam. So maybe it's like, all right, time to put him.
Now
Take
you
him on
gotta
the
go.
road.
Now
Yeah.
you gotta go on the road. And the more I think about this, as we're having this conversation about Valentina, I think they should do an immediate rematch. I think it's only right, bro. She's been your champion
Absolutely.
for all these years, like so dominant.
She's earned it.
She's earned it for sure. And then if I'm Aaron Blanchfield, I think I'm waiting.
See, I'm kind of ready to move on. I know she's earned it, but I think I was telling him I think 125, the women's, is on fire right now. Like you have Manon Fiorot, who hasn't fought since September or October. She beat Chukagian. I think no decision, but she's on fire. She's undefeated. I feel like she's like an afterthought right now. Tatiana Suarez, who's rumored to go back to 115, but her comeback fight was at 25, and everyone knows who Tatiana Suarez is, former Ultimate Fighter champion. She's Thabib, they call her, because her grappling is just world class. Her wrestling. You have Casey O'Neill, who's fighting in 2 weeks. You have obviously Blanchfield. So there's like 4 women that are like on fire, who I think all could be champions at some point. So if you want to give Valentina the rematch, I'd get it because her history and what she's done in the company. But I'm just like not sold on it for the fact that she lost to Amanda Nunes twice,
Yeah.
right? So it's like she's looked human in her
She
last
won
couple
the
fights.
second fight.
Yeah, you can argue that. You can argue that.
I'm in that camp. I'm in that camp too.
But it's just like she's man, for as good as she is, like she's not a GOAT. She's maybe like the best 125 we've ever seen, but that division's so new that it's just like kind of by default, you know? So I'm personally ready to see the new challengers at 25 take over rather than see her get another shot.
Well, you could do what they did with Whitaker, which I've always been a Whitaker guy. It's him and Izzy, and it was always very painful when them two would go at it. That's why they had that cool embrace at the Volk Islam fight, and I was like, oh, that was cool, man, to see them two like actually like kind of bury the hatchet. And even Adesanya had said in the past, he's like, yo, in a different life, he's my ultimate like rival in the UFC, in a different life, we're like best friends because we have so much in common. And what was really fascinating about that with Whitaker is after he lost to Izzy, he went, he fought Till, he fought Cannonier. Like he went back and like Gastelum. Like he went back to the drawing board and worked himself back up. And yeah, you could say like when you get knocked out, maybe you don't deserve the immediate rematch. And like Whitaker wasn't exactly on like a 7 title fight defense.
That's a big difference right there.
Yeah.
Because that 7 title defenses, because over a stretch of years, like she's earned that right. I mean, to Boss's point, like we're probably on the back 9 of her run in the UFC just because she's been doing it for so long. And your endurance as an athlete in this combat sport it never goes up. It always just drains.
Father times undefeated. My question to you guys is, so okay, if you want to run that back, it's what if Valentina wins? Do you have to run the trilogy, and then what happens to the burning star of Aaron Blanchfield? It kind of there's just other factors. I feel like you lose that star power or aura that's like around Aaron Blanchfield right now, because it'll probably be a year, maybe a year and a half, a year if we're lucky that we see her fight for the title. If they run it back, and then who knows? Like if Valentina wins, do you run the trilogy? It just gets complicated. I feel like so I'd be ready to move on, and then have Valentina maybe get one fight and then have her challenge again, but I don't want an immediate rematch personally.
So it could be the Nunez Pena thing too, where she lose by submission, they run it back, and then it's a dominating win. Like Nunez was like validated that it was a fluke, right? Like she had her moment. Maybe this is because Grasso wasn't really dominating the whole fight. She was getting dominated at some point too. We were talking about the crucifix before, so it's interesting, man. It's always gonna be interesting, and I'm fascinated with what happens next because, like you said, bro, I didn't think of 125 like that, and then you mentioned all those names.
Yo, it's on fire.
Yeah, and you were like super high.
I just feel like it's not talked about enough. The women's 125 division, like it's not getting the shine it deserves right now.
Well, I think it's cool now that there's such a like influx of new talent and like young prospects, because for the longest time they fell victim to who's gonna be Valentina. Bro, we were at the PI. Shouts to Bobby. He gave us like a little tour there, and it was super dope going to the PI. Like state of the art, obviously, right? Like the UFC it's the mecca there. But he showed us the championship belt, which weighs like 50 pounds, bro.
I think
like
40,
50 pounds. That shit is heavy, dude. Like you could kill someone if you hit him over the head, like fucking Stone Cold running into the ring. Like you're putting someone out. But he actually mentioned, he's like, yo, the Rubies, if Valentina wins, she'll be the first one to complete the cycle. And, she didn't win. They were like really looking forward to that visual. And then you would start it on the other side. And then Boss was like, yo, what happens if you feel that one? It's like, bro, that's like 16 title defenses. Maybe retire at that point. Like, what more do you have to prove? And it's whack that like John Jones would have had it completed. Right? What is that?
The biggest what if, just like you say, the biggest what if.
Yeah.
Isn't that
UFC
crazy?
history.
It is. But it's also true.
Yeah.
He's the biggest what if in MMA. And he's still the best fighter to ever do it. It's wild. I don't think we'll ever see something like that across all sports.
Just as far as like with the combination of talent, dominance, winning, controversy.
Yeah.
Everything. Like
and how long did we lose him in his like actual prime at 205, where suspension, personal life issues,
the legal troubles, and you're taking him out the octagon and out of camps, and he's still the best fighter to ever do it.
He's grinding
and
every single day.
He's what, 35 now?
Yeah.
So like by choice too, he took 32 to 35 off just to like change weight class. Not off, but he didn't fight, so he was inactive from 32 to 35, bulking up to heavyweight. Those are prime years too, man.
They are. But also heavyweight, you could go a little like past.
Right, but John Jones has mileage on him, bro. He has so many title fights under his
sure
belt that he's not like a fresh heavyweight at coming into the game at 35. He's got miles.
Was John Jones not the in this economy, play of the night.
I mean, looking back on it, that's a no-brainer.
But also like
Plus 200 is absolutely disgusting.
bro,
yeah, minus 200.
Yeah.
No, well, no, to open.
Oh, was it? I
Or
saw.
was, what was
Nah, it was like plus 120.
Okay,
was what it opened, and then
You
it
could just say
quickly-
underdog. Like the
plus,
fact he
plus
opened.
sign?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact he opened as an underdog was, I thought, crazy. But
Here's the thing, and there's gonna be, it might be one of the most important things that I'll say. Everyone was on John Jones, right? Everyone was on John Jones, and the line opens up at plus 120, and then it closed in some places minus 190. I said it'd be over minus 200. It got very close. If I could get an ISO cam here, this is how important this one is going to be. I have to call to the booth. It's the only sport that public perception doesn't sway me from picks,
Why is that?
because it's fighting and it's styles make fights, and sometimes lines are off. If everyone was on John Jones, Jeremiah, who was watching the fights with us, he's like, dude, I went to the bathroom after I got beers. As I'm coming back, everyone in the bathroom's like, bet the mortgage on John Jones. He's like, the better in me wants to go the other way. I'm like, dude, no. Not in. If it's the NFL and everyone's on the Bills like they were, I'm gonna sway away. Everyone is on the Lakers and LeBron in this game, I'm gonna sway away. But when it comes to the fight game, if everyone is on that side, and I feel like that's the right side, it doesn't. Don't hit me up and tell me, yo, the public's on Jones. Like, it don't matter.
would it change to a no bet, or you'd still be on Jones if you like were convinced of your play?
We've talked about this many times, how I feel like the only people that I get UFC betting advice or conversations with is him and my buddy Eric and my buddy Josh. We're in the UFC group chat, and we watch every fight. Like we go to regional fights. Like, we love the fight game. And I'll get his input. He'll be like, yo, that's a bad line. I'm on this. I'm like, yo, I'm on the other side. He'll be, and his go-to is like, yo, your bet, you do what you want with it, but this is what I like. That influences me more than the public being on it. If that makes sense. If boss is like, yo, I don't know, man, I don't like Jones tonight. Oh, okay. It has nothing to do with the public being on.
Well, it was like that yesterday. I was on Gamrot.
He was on Gamrot. I like Turner. I ended up not betting Turner because also this kid's a psychopath. He put a good amount of money on Gamrot. I didn't want to be that asshole where like my $50 bet to his $400. I don't want to be there sitting with him and like, yo, he's sweating out Gamrot. So I just didn't bet it. I took fight doesn't go to distance and ended up going to distance, so I lost there. But I was more so rooting for him there. But to me, it's the only sport where I don't care.
Well, I think that public perception, like what you're talking about, in the UFC, it's fundamentally different from the NFL, for instance, because in the NFL, it's confined to the United States of America, whereas the UFC, the public perception is worldwide. Whereas,
Good fucking point, man.
Whereas, like here in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, everybody's on John Jones. Albuquerque, New Mexico, USA, the entire town is on John Jones.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you go across the pond into Europe, everybody's going for Gane.
Yeah.
And then those bookmakers are adjusting their markets accordingly. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
No, but you're right. Yeah.
But it's because
That's
it's
a
a
good point.
global sport, and people are fighting each other from different parts of the world. Rachmanov from Kazakhstan. Like, you can't handicap the perception market like that when you're factoring in all these different places. So
That's
why
a
I
good
say
ass point, bro, because immediately I'm thinking about soccer. So that is always going to influence on a global scale as opposed to like New York. Oh, everyone in New York is on Brazil. It's like, oh, where's the rest of the world on?
Well, even take the Premier League, for example. If you're betting the Premier League, you're getting English media. And that's what's influencing the lines. Like American soccer fans like you guys, you're consuming English media to, form your opinions, and that's what's adjusting the lines. But when it comes to something like the World Cup or, CONCACAF Gold, like when different countries start getting involved, that's when it can get a little bit murky.
We hit our parlay again. We had Cody, John Jones, Shavkat, and Barrio, who won by knockout also. Back-to-back years, we hit the 4-leg parlay that him and I put together. We do, and this could be a cool thing for you guys to do with your friends. It's like you give one pick, he gives one pick, and then you agree on two. And that's what we ended up doing. We hit it, but we're like, what, two for 60 on these parlays? And when we only hit the ones in Vegas, I was like, yo, I'll take that, bro. I'll take it. Because we're also like laying bigger money on these. It's like $300-$400 a pop. Where the ones back home, it's like $10 each.
Yeah, we do the one with the chat where it's 4 of us. Where it's like $10 a head. Like everyone gives one pick.
Yeah.
And you can't like disagree with it. Like if you gave something that I didn't like, I'm like, well, it's your pick.
That's your pick. Yeah. That's how we do it.
We're just riding with it.
And it's always like his pick has, his fight is the first fight in the 4-leg parlay, and we don't make it a fight. It's all. And then it'll be mine also, and then it's a fun way to kind of build bets with your buddies.
Oh,
it's super dope. Yeah, it's cool.
And it's like $10, so it's just like having fun.
Okay,
but over here we ended up paying for STK yesterday. That banging steak, bro.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Well,
STK.
yeah, we upped the size just because I up it because I only come out here once a year usually.
I mean, bro, that's the first dinner that I've gotten out here. Like
no, I mean
like
the betting size. The betting
size. Oh
yeah,
for sure.
Just stupid but it's only because
we're
here once a year. We were going to the fights.
So bring it back to John Jones. Plus 400 for him to win by submission.
Yeah. Dude, right before the fight, I go on the app, plus 120.
No.
Yeah, that was weird.
It got like, for it to move that significantly, there was a lot of money coming in on that submission. And he had the massive advantage. Like, bro, it was one takedown, and then it was a wrap.
Goes back to like perception too. Like everyone going into that fight that was talking about it was like, oh well, where does John Jones have the advantage? It was like clearly the grappling advantage in every aspect. Like we've seen Jones grapple, and we saw what Gane looked like last fight against Ngannou. So it was like if John Jones gets his hand on him and gets him to the floor, to the mat, it might end relatively quickly. Either ground and pound, which he's known for. He's finished several fights, the DC fight, the Gus fight, vicious ground and pound, or his submissions.
Well, let's just talk about this. The Gracie Baja guillotine. Shout out Gracie Baja. That's my gym out in New Mexico. That's where John trains. We had Tusa in his corner. He runs all the Gracie Baja. So first off, shout out Gracie Baja. Secondly, historically, John Jones has been doing some weird stuff in his fights. Like he always shows something different to his opponents, First, it's like that weird calf or that weird thigh kick that he does.
Oh, the oblique kick.
Yeah.
I hate those, man.
Yeah, or he'll do something like he's unpredictable when you match up against him. This fight against Gane, he went into his wrestling bag. He just decided to take the fight to a place where he thought he was going to be comfortable, and all the pundits were saying that he was going to do that, and that was a 2-minute fight.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah,
Plus
it felt like a minute of it was him just trying to sink his guillotine in.
Oh, and then also bring it outside of the octagon. This fight kind of felt like with John, there was always something. There's always something with John. When he was walking up the stairs, they had to mess with his tape on the toes.
Bro, what was that?
That was like lasted longer than the fight did.
Yeah. No, but for real, it's kind of a microcosm with John. It's like there's always something that's going on. Whether it's like his whether he's responsible for it or if it's external circumstances, there's always something that goes on. Going back to your point of John being the biggest what if in UFC history, there's just always something that goes on. And then 5 seconds into the fight, he gets kicked in the cup.
Yeah.
Like,
yo,
two instances, a little microcosm of his career.
Literally, like before the fight could even get started. It was the tape and the groin shot.
Yo,
that was going on.
Those are bars, bro. For real. Yeah, when you start thinking about all his fights, it's always been something. And then the parallels to his life. That's why, man, you also have to kind of be a wild boy to be that kind of a dominant fighter too, right? Like if he was super clean cut, it wouldn't make sense. Like him having all these personal issues that he has outside the octagon, it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense because this guy's a wild fighter too. Opens up in a title fight first time. He's 22, 23 years old, a flying knee against Shogun, and then just like everything. Like he beat Machida in like one of the most vicious ways, like how Machida's body just collapsed on that choke that he had him up against the cage. Like he does, yeah, he does that stuff, man. He's the GOAT. Like, and I like how he did the bad thing at the end.
Oh,
like
that was so cool.
That was such an honest moment from John Jones. It's like, yo, he's been waiting to do that too. And now it'll be him and Stipe, I think, right? Yeah, he called for it.
It's
Dana
gonna
likes it. Stipe deserves it too. That'll
International
probably be
Fight Week.
International Fight Week. Yeah.
Going back to what was the conversation about filling up Allegiant Stadium? That's the kind of circumstance it would take to fill up a football stadium. That's the kind of fight it would
Agreed.
take. International Fight Week, the build-up, Hall of Fame inductions, all of the fanfare. That's what kind of card it's going to take for the UFC to pull 60,000 into an arena.
Yeah, and you need a guy like John Jones as like your headliner. It's heavyweight. People like the bigger guys, just like in boxing.
Baddest man on the planet. Title.
Yeah. And it's the GOAT. Like Tom Brady was there yesterday too, which was really cool. Did they boo Brady or did they?
Nah, he got popped.
He got a pop?
Yeah.
Hey, and you said they booed Islam, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I had left.
That- bad.
That was, I don't know. I didn't like that.
I didn't
Bro,
understand why, but I was like,
Nah,
oh, yeah.
so here's what I think happened, and we'll end the show on this, and I would love to hear your thoughts, and you guys could chime in, Veterans Minimum, hit us up, and tell us what your thoughts are. One of my favorite UFC moments ever was when Corey Sandhagen lost to Peter Yan, and whoever was interviewing him, maybe it was DC or Felder, was like, hey, man, did you think you did enough to win? And he said, nah, not really, man. I feel like that's a fair decision. Like, he admits, how many times do you see guys say, oh, I got screwed, I got robbed, whatever it might be. Islam, the way he handled the post-fight, I think, like, soured a lot of people. He was the bigger guy. It was his division. No one gave Volk a chance. And he won 2 rounds off of him. He wasn't really, the last round. If there was another round in that fight, he'd probably lose that. Like,
Oh yeah, he was.
dude, with like 3 minutes left, he's on his back, Islam, and he's looking up at the clock, and he has like a death stare of like, please get me out of here, right? And that's always a bad omen when a guy's looking at the clock. To me, I feel like you lose the fight. Like, when you're looking at the clock, it's like you don't want to be in there. It's bad optics to the judges. And then O'Malley, when he fought Yan, very controversial decision. Oh, he got robbed. They're spoon feeding him wins and shit. Not spoon feeding, that's a bad term, but like the judges are behind this one because it's a cash cow. And O'Malley's like, hey, man, I got to go back and watch the tape. And I think you give those honest answers where you're not like, yeah, I won that convincingly. Patty Pimblett. Patty took a heel turn against our boy.
Yep.
Dude, to this day, it's the only time I've seen the entire world, journalists, analysts, fighters, the media, all were like, yo, Jared got robbed. But Patty comes out, he goes, oh, I won that fight rather easy. It's like, bro, you're being delusional here, and you sour the fan base.
He's leaning into the character, but even still, like, that's just kind of a scumbag.
Yeah,
move.
you're leaning into the character. I get that, and you're right. But I think that's the perception of that guy changes, and that's what I think you saw happen.
You think so? I don't know. I just thought it was weird. I feel like Khabib was kind of beloved, but it took to like later in his career to become beloved. Like no one really gave him pop either. But I don't know. I was kind of surprised, like just being there in the crowd, and everyone was getting cheers. It was there was a ton of fighters there. I forgot who they were showing. Stipe, he got popped.
The Diaz brothers.
The Diaz brothers got a massive pop.
I saw Nick
bro.
asleep in the front row. He was all passed out.
And then they pan to Islam, and he's getting like booed out of the arena. I don't know. As a champion, I didn't quite get it, but because going back to the fight, like I thought he won clear. Yeah, it was 3-2, but I thought it was a clear 3-2 in favor of Islam. So I don't know. I thought it was unwarranted, and who knows? But it's MMA, man. It's good to have bad guys and good guys, and people. It's good for him, I'm sure, too, for his marketing. Like, everyone's talking about me for better or worse.
Yep.
It's always never a bad thing.
Never a bad thing when they're yapping, bro.
Yeah.
Never a bad thing. Dude, this was fun. It was great to have you in here.
Thanks for having me, man.
It was great to kick the weekend with you, man. Always love these fight weekends. We call it like full-fledged testosterone-driven weekends. It's just like it's fights and beers and fights and beers. Like that's all it is, and a lot of degenerate stuff at the sports book too. But it was fun. I know the audience has been looking forward to having you back on the show and hearing from you. And we're going to do a People's Podcast shortly after this. That's why we're wrapping this one up. So it'll be up on Patreon for all you guys to go and check it out. You'll get it in advance before everyone else does. Nick, you'll probably just be hanging out in here while we record that one. But it was dope. Thanks to everyone that listened to the show last week, continues to listen to the show. Shout out to your friends. Let them know that you're listening. Tag us on social media. And yeah, super grateful for everything over the last couple of months. It's been really cool to see. And Nick, you always like showing mad love with the Patreon and pledging, and it doesn't, not taking that for granted. I try my best, man. It's hard being a one-man show. try to like create more content. So that's why I got some hats for you that I'm gonna give you after this. But enough about me. Where can they find you, boss, if they want to check out your shit and whatever life is?
Thanks for having me on too, by the way. And it was awesome to meet Nick this weekend, which was cool. At ndevito27 on Twitter and Instagram.
And for you,
You'll find me at Nicky Chav on Twitter and Instagram, 2 Y's, 2 V's. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, man. I really appreciate it, boss. Great to chill with you this weekend, man.
Yeah, it's a great cap to the weekend.
all right,
Sure,
everybody,
man.
we'll catch you guys next time.